with design thinking, you always take the challenge and you turn it into a vision question. So whatever the problem is, whether it be, say, if you're a sales manager, it be sales performance for your team, or whether you're an HR person and it's, you're not hiring enough employees for a role. Whatever the challenge is, you turn it into a vision question. So in looking at our challenge today, our vision question becomes, how might we create connection and culture in a world that attracts and sustains loyalty? And I think I mentioned this, but just in case I didn't, shout out to David, who's on the line with us today, because he's the one that gave us this question. And I think it's a great one. And I want to take a look at it through the lens of design thinking. And by a show of hands, who has heard of design thinking or is familiar with the 5 steps of the process? Because I don't want to waste a lot of time going through this if you're not familiar with it. But if you are familiar with it, then I'll just breeze through it. So we got 1 thumbs up that knows it. Another one. Okay, I see 3 or 4. So basically, I'll just breeze through it. So don't tune out if you've already heard it too much. But basically, design thinking is a 5-step process. As I mentioned before, it's generally been applied to the innovation of products and services in the past, which it can still be done even through the lens of leadership. But Gartner research has found it's the #1 skill in the C-suite that they're pursuing these days. And the reason for that, I believe, is that when you look at Design Management Institute's research, companies like Apple, Ford, Toyota, I think there's 10 companies that they call design-led. Their performance outperforms the S&P 228% over the last 10 years. So it's hugely impactful in numerous different ways. And so applying it to our challenge of how do we create connection and culture in a virtual world? Basically, you take that challenge question, that vision question that we just had up there of how might we do this, and you take it to your audience. And for you, that's your team. So if you lead a group of 10 people, or you lead an organization of 150, you take that question to them and you ask them. And this is where the empathy comes in, and you get them on board with, what's working, what's not working, what are some things to try. And then you really begin to define the problem. And I'll share this multiple times throughout the process, but the reason why this is so important, that the team or the user, which is generally the customer in a traditional innovation project, defines a problem, is because it is their problem that is keeping you as a leader from your vision. So it's almost as if their needs and your vision are interconnected by these problems. And so in removing the problems, you begin to elevate the team and the individuals up to reach the vision. In leading by design, when your design team is your team that you're working with, then they become self-agent in a way that they as a team begin to brainstorm and come up with the solutions to the problems that they in fact have said are the issues. So it's not like they're dumping all their problems on you as the leader. Hey, solve this and I can do better. But no, it's we coming together to provide the solutions. And then the prototyping and testing. Now, obviously the prototyping and testing is going to look a little bit different because you're not dealing with a product or service. I mean, this could be something like, our sales meetings need to move from Monday morning to Thursday afternoon, or it can be, how we pull together resources from a virtual world is going to look different. Let's try these. So your prototyping and testing is going to look a little different than the traditional sense of product and services, but it's going to be surrounded in your team, the processes they use, how they get their work done, and what kind of tweaks can be made so that those problems are off their plates, off their shoulders, and they can move on to the vision, which is in this case creating connection and culture and loyalty. Now, just one example of this, I ran across this story this week, and you may have seen it shared on my LinkedIn. How many have a rolling suitcase? I would imagine everybody. You may not have used it in a while, but you have one, right? Well, the rolling suitcase was created by a pilot who was tired of lugging his luggage back and forth from plane to plane. He was also noticing, I think it was back in the 70s, that more women were traveling alone and they were struggling with their luggage. And so he just felt like it was this problem that needed to be solved. It was his own problem, but it was also a problem that he saw many others with. Now, the airport or the airlines, I'm not sure who's responsible, thought that they had provided adequate solution. They had the trolleys that you could get and carry your luggage on. So they thought they had done the right job. The leaders of the powers that be thought that they had done well by providing these trolleys. But the pilot noticed, there weren't enough of them. They were never where you needed them to be. And quite frankly, if you did find one and found it where it needed to be, then it couldn't go down the runway. So you were still left at some point lugging your luggage around. And so he created the rolling suitcase. And that is the power of design thinking. When we put design thinking in the hands of our leaders, then they not only can make life more, or the suffering of their constituents less, but they can also create great innovations. And so that's why I think that the power of design thinking as a leadership principle, not just a product principle, can really benefit our organizations 100-fold, because not only does it take care of problems that the employees are facing every day, which is causing them to take their eyes off the vision that they have, but it's also going to remove those problems. It's going to help you achieve your vision faster. But then there's also this potential of a rolling suitcase, that your team could find something that is the next innovation just by solving someone's problem or ending someone's suffering that's around them. So let's move on. Obviously, we can't go through all 5 of these with the time that we have, but this just kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like. We're going to focus mainly on the empathize and the define stage as we interact going forward. So this is a quote by Brené Brown, and it says this is her definition of connection. And I think this is where it all starts for us in the virtual world. And I'll go through some of the connections between culture and loyalty going forward. But she said, the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. And so I've talked about in previous meetups and webinars about the 4 aspects of being human: being, doing, thinking, feeling. Feelings are that energy that exists between us. If you've ever walked into a room with 2 people fighting, before they've even said anything, you can feel the energy in the room. You may not know what has happened or why they're fighting, but you know something negative is going on. Same thing if you walk into a room and someone's celebrating something, you know, without even seeing anything or heard anything, by the energy in the room. And so connection is an energy. So that means that our connection goes beyond our doings, so our jobs and our day-to-day function. It goes beyond our thinking. While we may feel connection with someone who's like-minded or thinks like we do, it even goes beyond thinking and that to the very source of our being. And so it's the empathize phase of design thinking is all about allowing those emotions to exist, not trying to fix them, but allowing them to exist, allowing them to move. And if you think about emotions as energy in motion, they're like waves. And waves on an ocean, they come and they go, right? They come and they go. So it's just allowing them to be there and holding space for them so that they can feel seen, heard, and valued, not judged about them. And so that's where I want to start on our connection. And we're going to go through kind of a group exercise that I want you all to participate in. when we get to our A/B testing. But this is what connection is about. And this doesn't require in-person contact, because even through technology, you can make space for someone's energy or their feelings and emotions and talk to them and it's not so much about the emotion while you want to hold space for it. It's about the needs behind the emotion that really is what drives the innovation for design thinking. So how are all these things connected? And I just broke these down. You actually could probably on your own list some other things that occur when you are connected to someone. But I just broke down Brene's quote, Brene's quote, so that you could see how that plays out. So if you are connecting with someone and they are feeling seen and heard and valued, AKA they are being accepted for the person they are, then that is creating an authentic culture, right? When we can show up as our whole selves, 100% of who we are, and you can do the same, then that's an authentic culture. And authentic cultures are conducive to loyalty. People want to work in those kinds of environments, right? Secondly, she said it's jointly solve problems that create chronic emotions or chronic negative emotions. In her quote, it talked about being able to give and receive without judgment. And so when I can give you negative feedback about a problem that I have to deal with, and you can receive that, and then we can give and take in an environment to create a solution to get rid of that negative chronic emotions, then we're creating a positive culture, right? Because anytime you eliminate a problem, you eliminate the negative emotions that it creates, and that creates a more positive culture. And again, that is conducive to employee loyalty. And the last thing from her quote, understand each other's strengths that elicit positive emotions. You know, if any of you have throughout your day where you're working in your strengths, no one has to motivate you, no one has to inspire you. You just are excited because you get to do what it is you love to do, what comes innately easy for you. You know, in fact, someone may compliment you or thank you for a great job, and you'll go, oh, it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. It was just so innate and natural to you that it is a strength of yours. And so whenever you understand one another and the strengths that elicit all those positive emotions, then you create a fun and empowered and engaged culture. And again, that type of culture is conducive to creating loyalty. So questions here or thoughts, anything you'd like to share, come off of mute. Things maybe that Brene's quote didn't cover that you see in connection and how it filters through or aligns between culture and loyalty.
Well, I think that she hit the nail on the head. For my business, I look at everything as a collaboration. It's not me being the all-knowing person and dictating what happens. It's a collaboration, and that's done through communication. And if you have a genuine curiosity about people and where they come from and getting to know them, then they will automatically develop that trust with you, and then they will feel more comfortable coming out of their shell, and which generates even more loyalty and trust. And then if you collaboratively solve problems that are problems that they identify, then you know it's a win-win, and these people have many of them are friends for life.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head, and I can't believe I didn't even cover it in this slide, is the trust factor. Because each time you empathize with them, you define the problem together, you come up with solutions together, each of you brings your strengths to creating that solution. That just builds trust, and then you repeat that, and the trust just continues to build and build. When I first started using design thinking as a leadership principle, I was going into offices that hadn't been performing well. The employees were, concerned that they wouldn't make the cut because they knew potential cuts were happening. And so they were shocked in many instances that I was asking them to, what are the problems you are having? And then, okay, what are some ideas for the solution? And then, okay, well, what is it that you get excited about in crafting that solution? And so, it's them tapping into the pieces of that solution that they get excited about that really brings them to bringing those strengths to the table. Mm-hmm. And then the ownership of the solution really isn't yours as the leader, it's the whole team, and it's that collaborative environment that you talked about, Boone. What else sticks out to you guys as you look at the slide that I might have missed? Jeffrey?
I mean, I think there's a couple of things. One is, I think a key precondition is this whole sense of sort of psychological security. So I think it's trust, but I think there's other things too. It's about respect, it's about fairness. There's those sorts of things which have to be in the mix to sort of be a sort of foundational piece. Then I think when you build on that, clearly one of the things which is important is how do you create a sense of voice so that people actually do have a say and that they feel that they're being listened to. But the other thing too is connection, I think, is also about how do people identify with what the organization is trying to do. And I think there's two dimensions to that. One is about the values of the organization, which I think is why so many people these days are focused on things like, what's the organization doing in terms of societal impact, environmental impact, that kind of thing. But it's also about, do people understand the strategic narrative of what the organization is doing? And can they connect with that and understand where they fit in and what they've got to do? So I think connections, that is very important. So if people understand that big picture, then they can begin to say, okay, now I know what I need to do. But if you don't know which mountain you're going to climb, then you don't know which way you're going to have to start marching.
Yeah, good points. And I think that really speaks to the 5 steps of the design thinking process. When you empathize in a true sense with your team, the individuals on your team, then they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel valued. They're seen and heard because you're digging into what are the emotions they're feeling about this particular vision. What is working, what's not working, why do they think that is? You go into the 5 whys of digging deep into, what they think about the vision statement and what they think is keeping your team from the vision statement. And so they have those things, and then they are bringing their whole selves, and they're able to feel safe in bringing forth their ideas. Not being judged is a huge thing. So I see all of this happening in design thinking, and it does create that respect that employees want. Yes, I understand, I'm an idea person. So when I'm working with an employee, I may have 100 ideas. Your respect for me is just in listening to them and, considering them. It doesn't mean you're going to apply all 100 of them, I know it's the consideration, I think, that gives me the respect, not the fact that, my idea won. That's when we know ego is involved, whether it's us as the leader or the employee. But it's just that consideration of it and taking it into account and really understanding the idea again. Any other thoughts or comments?
Yeah, Karen. So whenever there is transparency in what we speak and what we think and what we do, then it is a more authentic relationship. When there is no hiding behind the wall or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's how we can build the trust with our colleagues, with our clients, and with every other stakeholders.
I think that's so true. And I actually, on another podcast I did with a wonderful lady by the name of Debra Corey, in one of her projects, they actually took, a company value, say it's transparency. And they then went and asked the employees, where are we not transparent? And oh my goodness, it's tough to hear some of those things. but it's very necessary, because when our values say one thing and our actions say another, there's a disconnect, and that disconnect breaks down trust and many other things. So we really have to, take off our ego when we go into these conversations, to empathize with our team, to know that whatever they're going to share with me, it's going to make me a better person for hearing it. It's going to make us a better team for me allowing them to share it. Because it's really important. What we think we're saying and doing are in alignment may not actually be, because we all have blind spots, right? And that's why I think the team is so important. They can help us each with our blind spots to make sure that, hey, we're our being, doing, thinking, and all those things are in alignment. Any other comments before we move on? I think we're good. I want to make sure we get to our. All right, so just to kind of sum this up, loyalty is a reflection of how well a company meets the needs of its employees. I think, as Geoffrey mentioned a little earlier, employees coming off this pandemic, or the toughest part of it, are really looking back to their companies and saying, how well did they meet my needs? And in the instances where they didn't meet them, did they ignore them? Did they do the opposite? They're really making their judgments on, no longer is my role as an employee about me doing X number of hours and you paying me for X number of hours. There are other needs involved. And so that's what loyalty comes down to. And, as we saw on the last slide, and in all the great things that each of you shared, it really all flows back to connection. Are we connecting with them? Are we seeing them, hearing them, valuing them, meeting their needs? And in that begins to create the culture. It's all interconnected here. All right, so connection, ABC testing. So we're going to do work versus what the F. So I want you to come off mute and just quickly, we're going to go around the room. We're going to pretend you're my virtual team for a minute, and I'm going to do A and then B. But this has nothing to do with our vision question. This is just more of a connection and the energy of feelings to see it at play. So I want to go with work first. And so you're my team. Hey, everybody. So glad you came to this meeting. 101 for today, I'm sure. Tell me, what are you working on this week? So you can make something up, or you can tell me actually what you're working on. It doesn't matter, but someone start us off. Anurag, what you working on today?
Yeah, so I'm working on a metadata tool called Colibra, and that is used for different purposes, like creating the data dictionaries and workflows, and the data stewardship. So it has so many uses with respect to data governance and data capturing as well.
All right, that's what Anurag's working on. Boone, what are you working on today?
So my biggest thing is that we just added a team of 300 agents to our company, and how we're going to smoothly integrate them into our system.
Oh, fun, integration. Stephen, what are you working on today?
I'm working on a bit of visioning, I suppose. I'm in the process of finishing up a PhD on psychosocial and psychoanalytic studies. So I'm interested in psychological safety in the workplace. So
Nice.
Looking at diversity, inclusion, equity, all of those things. And looking at how in the future I would be able to position myself to do work like merging management with psychological safety ideas.
Wonderful.
So I'm exploring.
Exploring. Those are the fun days, right? I love it.
It's not easy.
My personality loves the rabbit hole days, those exploring and visioning days. Jeff, what are you doing today? What work are you doing?
I'm currently getting ready for doing a whole load of training on culture change. I'm doing some teaching at a German university, and tomorrow we're going through, amongst other things, case study on the famous merger between Daimler and Chrysler, on why that didn't work and how far was that due to culture clash and how far was it due to other things. So really interesting topic.
It is an interesting topic. Melinda, I don't know if you can get your hands on the phone, but what are you working on today from the car?
Hi. So today I'm seeing clients, and I would say what I'm working on, not just today, but my goals right now, and why I'm here is I think I naturally have this way of leading and learning more about it so that I can share it with my coworkers and teach them these same ideas of like really seeing each other and being vulnerable. When I'm leading people, I'm definitely extremely vulnerable. I think I usually start with what I already see I'm doing wrong so that it makes a safe space for them to go ahead and come at me. But I also, am working with the parents specifically today to help them see where our clients are coming from. So teaching people to understand the other perspective, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big challenge. David, what are you working on today?
Implementing our change plan.
Implementing change plan.
Brand new tools launching to our entire supply chain organization and getting all 500 people migrated over to these new tools.
Yeah, some pretty heavy work going on here today with this crew. So again, just gives me pause and gratitude that you're spending your time with me. Anyone else? Those are just the names that I can see. Narmati, what are you working on today? Are you still with us? I don't see your picture. So
Was it me? Correct?
yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
What are you working on today?
I am working on a global project proposal for a customer on an integration project.
Okay.
So that's what I'm working on.
All right. So notice how you're feeling. Are you feeling connected to anyone in particular? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe thinking, thank God I'm not connected to that person because the work they have to do is out of my league. I don't know. So just notice how you're feeling. So we're going to move to the second one, and that's the what the F connection. So kind of shotgun this one, but then we'll talk about how you can apply design thinking to this. But I want to go through the same people and anyone else that wants to chime in. And instead of telling me what you're working on today, I want you to tell me one thing that frustrated you this week, one thing that you found fun this week at work. These all apply to work, and one thing that frankly you were bored about this week. So Stephen, you want to start us out? Frustrated, fun, and frankly bored.
I suppose frustrated by the broader situation imposed by COVID. Bored would be having to revalidate contracts. So that took a few hours of boring administration. And what was the other one?
Fun. What was fun at work?
I suppose just out getting a bit of sport, doing sport. That's the only kind of fun space in the situation we're in at the moment. Okay.
Boone, what's yours? Frustrated, fun, and frankly bored.
Frustrated is in my industry, there's a lot of compliance and it requires tons of paperwork, which means tons of time that I can't be doing things that I consider way more productive. So bored, I don't know. I don't know that I have a whole lot of boring things going on. I constantly stayed in either the active or the relaxation phase. Fun is that's an easy one. My favorite part of my week is seeing my agents get paid. It's a real blast to see people that have started from a completely different industry actually become successful in this business, and that's probably my favorite thing. Okay, love that. Anurag, frustrated, fun, and frankly bored.
I'll start with fun because of the work from home opportunity, we are able to do much more than what we could do earlier when we had to travel. The travel time is reduced and flexibility in working hours. So that is the fun part of it. Bored is sometimes that we are not able to go out of our houses and do the regular things that we used to do before the lockdown. And frustrated, I don't think I'm frustrated at all.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. We may need your secret sauce there for that one.
It is yoga and meditation.
Yeah. Hey, I do both of those. They do help tremendously. Melinda, fun, frustrated, frankly bored.
Well, my frustrated and bored come from the same thing. I hate paperwork.
Okay.
I hate paperwork. So
Yeah.
please leave it. I do anything I can to avoid it.
Yeah.
And then fun, it's just seeing our clients grow into, I work with young people, and to see them grow and mature and find faith in themselves, and watching the relationships with parents get like some healing. It's really beautiful to watch all of that.
Yeah, that's cool. Geoffrey, fun, frankly bored, and frustrated.
Yeah, I can't think of anything bored, but in terms of frustrating, I'm having to interact at the moment with a number of different organizations where I get into really, really complicated and customer-unfriendly processes. So you end up being given the runaround between different numbers and people and that kind of thing. And so one of these companies yesterday ended up writing to the CEO and just sort of complained about what a lousy service they did. And then I got an email back from somebody who was a complaints analyst, which is, I said to my wife, if they have to have someone who's just spent their time analyzing complaints, it shows how terrible they are. So that's kind of frustrating. The fun thing right now is during the month of April, I'm part of a cancer charity based here. And we're doing a challenge where we're walking the distance from here to the moon and back again. And so every day we're all trying to walk as many steps as we can in our free moments. And already we've walked as far to the moon already. So the challenge is to keep up the pace and make sure that we can outdo the targets. So that's good fun.
Oh, good fun. Narmati?
Yeah. So the fun part is learning new models on the cultural integration that I'm doing, and the frustrating part is the kind of reports, Excel sheets, and documents that is breaking the head. What is boring is related to the frustration part, because there's a lot of confidentiality data and we don't have the bigger picture. So it's frustrating that we have to do an analysis with half-cooked work. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for sharing, Narmati. David, what about you? Fun, frustrated, and frankly bored.
This product development roadmap is speaking right to my strengths, and we've been able to do some visioning around how we take the tools we're implementing and evolve them, utilizing design. So it's been fun. The boredom is the piece that doesn't speak to my strength, and that's implementation. So 500 people in supply chain are not getting my best. Well, they're getting my best, they're not getting my enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And frustrating is always the rework, so to speak, having to say it 100 times and then having to go back and say it 100 more. I didn't know the product could do that. Okay. Yeah. So all aspects of this this implementation have all three phases embedded in it.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but I saw a lot more smiles on your faces as people were talking about what was fun or laughing about what was frustrating and frankly boring. A lot of head shaking when they hit on something that you were also bored with. So as you can see, tapping into the feelings really begins to connect us, even though, I have no clue what Anurag does with data engineering. That's not my background. I could identify with what he enjoyed and what he saw frustrating or what he saw fun. But it goes beyond that, because this wasn't just a simple little game you could play with your team to connect. This actually is kind of how you can go about when you have these one-on-one conversations with your team, looking for solutions to your challenge, whether it be the connection and culture or some other challenge, because the fun, as David mentioned, draws on his strengths. So when we pay attention to what is fun for our team, and we pay attention to what is frankly boring for our team, then guess what? A huge thing going forward, which I'm sure Geoffrey could even speak to even more, is job crafting. And so when we begin to look at these things like what's fun, what's frankly boring, then we can begin to see these patterns of opportunity for how we can craft our team's jobs to suit their own strengths and their own needs. Another thing you can see as you begin to dig deeper, obviously I didn't dig deep into anyone's feelings about any of those three aspects. You can also begin to see what are opportunities for innovation here. Obviously, there's better solutions in each of our companies for reducing paperwork. So how do we come together as a team and look at this paperwork we're doing? How can it be done faster, more efficiently, maybe eliminated altogether? I mean, those things that are frankly boring or frustrating, those are your innovation opportunities, something that you can put your brain power and your team's brain power to work around solving. Because imagine how much lighter and freer each of you would feel if that thing that was frankly boring or frustrating to you suddenly left your plate. Well, that's the power of design thinking, when you can create those solutions that reduce that frustration or that boredom, and do it in a way that is fun. And solving problems is fun. I don't care what personality type you are. It's builds a camaraderie and unifies a team when they come together and they knock something to the ground that's really been holding them back. So that's kind of the exercise of connecting work versus what WTF. And so I want to kind of end with this is what design thinking does. It takes the employee's needs and the company's vision, and it finds where those two intersect. And that's where the success comes in. And I think nothing summarizes it better than Zig Ziglar's quote that says, you can have everything in life that you want if you help enough other people get what they want. So you want this vision for your company, for your team, whatever that vision is. Your employees have problems that are distracting them from that vision. When you begin to work together to eliminate those, then the success begins to happen easier and easier and easier. And that's the power of design thinking. So that's it. We're wrapping up right on time. Your homework, if you haven't already done this, is to take your how might we statement to your team and ask them, how might we connect better? Or how might we build whatever your words are, whatever your vision you have is for your team, ask them, how might we do this? And then really listen to what they think's working and what's not working, maybe ways they see to improve it, find out how they want to kind of co-create the solutions to those issues with you as their leader, and begin to build that connection as well as that culture of problem solving and winning in your organization. So any questions as we wrap up? I am always here, and now you can ask them. Obviously, I want to pause for that, but you can also send me messages on LinkedIn as well as my email here. But final thoughts or questions or even suggestions for next month. We're going to do this again. If there's a leadership challenge that you would like us to talk about through the lens of design thinking, would love to hear it. Boone?
So Karen, I think one thing that I would like as a suggestion for next time, because I think it'll give us a whole new level of texture, is to kind of know what industry everybody's in, so that we can kind of know from whence the thoughts come from, and that way we can understand at a different level.
Yeah, I will have to consider that and see how we can make that happen. Perhaps we will build into a group online where we can check one another out more readily as to what they do. But yeah, I think that's a good thing to have to help us understand one another and also connect on different aspects of business. You know, you may see someone in this group that has exactly the skill set you need for something that you're working on. So
Absolutely.
yeah, if you have suggestions, pass them along, but I think that's a good one, Boone.
It could be just a 30-minute intro or a 30-second introduction. You know, hi, my name is Boone. I work with Transamerica Financial Advisors.
Yeah.
This is the industry I'm in, and that's it.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thoughts, questions before we wrap up?
Just one. And so the whole time I'm thinking of taking this to my team. And when you work for I'm just going to say it, religious organization, there's a lot of fighting on not fighting, it's not maybe the right word, but opposition to some ideas. So maybe some ideas of how to approach that, which I know we'll get to eventually, but that's just all that was on my mind is, oh shit, I got to take this to the Baptist.
Yes, it is challenging to take new ideas when minds are closed. So yeah, so I other than share it and let them take and not judge, their acceptance or denial of it is probably the only thing you can hope for. Just show up 100% you. Anyone else? Comments, thoughts? All right, well, we want to get you out of here on time. I thank each and every one of you again for spending your hour with me. I hope you found it useful and helpful, and I hope you're able to take something you learned either through the presentation or from others that spoke on the line back to your team and create a more connected environment with your team. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Speak to you later.